it is because you are literally applying for a job. Be friendly, but be professional, just like you would if you were applying for work, which, again, you are. You are applying for work. Which brings us to the main point here. More than anything, and I know I keep ramming this home, but the key to all this is taking your work seriously, but at the same time not taking yourself too seriously. You've got to be prepared for rejections and people haggling and offering lowball offers, and if you're rejected, just move on. They might well end up approaching you later down the line, and if you weren't a whiny little bitch about getting rejected, then they're more likely to think well enough of you to approach you again.
Hi and welcome to Big Gig Energy, a podcast by musicians for musicians, helping you get bigger gigs, no matter what level you're at. I'm your host, Steve Leggett, and with 10 years experience as a professional musician, doing everything from pubs and functions to travelling the world in a ukulele boy band, I understand that being a musician is rarely the glamorous experience people make it out to be, and that building your career up to a point where you get to go pro is about the most challenging professional leap of faith there is. But I'm going to use my experience and insight, and maybe a guest or two, to help you activate your own big gig energy and take things to the next level, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out. So, let's get to it.
Hi, and welcome to episode 6 of the Big Gig Energy podcast. This week, we're looking at two key weapons in any band's arsenal: promo packs and merchandising. Promo packs are targeted specifically at prospective clients. They're a form of marketing, and for example, if you're approaching a venue you'd like to perform at, or if a couple have approached you about playing their wedding and want to see more of what you do, a promo pack is a great way of just saying, right, here you go, here's the information, this is what we do, and it's a way of showing them everything that you're about and acting like a brochure, like a shop window front. Merchandising is an income stream, which in most cases will break even and result in free marketing. That's why for most people, in most cases, you need to see it more as your marketing budget than a way of making money. Although, for many touring artists, it can become a primary source of income once touring costs are taken into consideration. With both of these things, you have to pick your target market and audience very carefully. Don't try and appeal to everyone. Music and branding are both very subjective, and it's impossible to please everyone. Instead, try and please the people you think are more predisposed to your music and your overall vibe. Take some time to really think about who your target market is. Just like in any other form of sales, and again looking at this from a business perspective, it's a numbers game. You pitch to a big pool of people, and that's going to narrow down to actual sales. If you send promo packs out to 100 people, maybe 20 of them will read it, and maybe 5 of them will actually purchase, or hire you, as the case may be. Thing is, though, if you can target that initial pool of prospective customers a little bit more in a more focused manner, you'll be a step closer to the conversion part of the sales funnel journey. That is, funneling someone on a journey from hearing of your band for the first time to either hiring you or purchasing your merchandise. So part 1 of 2, your promo pack. The promo pack is the band's biggest asset in terms of progression. Bigger than your biggest gig to date, really, as bragging rights from that gig will only form a small part of your promo pack. So what should you include? I would recommend the following. Most of these are taken from episode 4's considerations on branding and marketing. So if you haven't already, have a listen to that episode, make some notes, get these things in place. These things must all be bang up to date. Item number 1, publicity photos. You only need a couple. One posed for branding's sake, so something that shows off the brand, the vibe. So in this case, we're talking studio or on some kind of location. Just for the love of God, please, not a graffiti-stained alley. It's not 1993 anymore. And a live shot, which sort of captures your energy and your on-stage vibe. So you want to show people what the band is about, and then you want to help them to imagine what it will be like to watch you live when they hire you, which they will, because you're going to impress them with your promo pack. Big gig energy, remember. Number 2, your biography. This can and should be tailored just a little bit for the person that you're sending it to. A bit like when you send off a CV covering letter for a job application. You don't want to send out the exact same thing to every company. you want to say, if you're applying to a company that builds beds, you want to tell them how much beds mean to you and how much you want to build beds because you love sleeping so much. You tailor it for the company you're applying to, and in this case, you want to tailor your biography to the person you're sending the promo pack to. So if it's a couple that have asked you for more information about your wedding packages, you can talk about how much you love playing weddings, or if it's a particular venue, you can mention if you've been to the venue before, if you like the venue, why you think the venue's vibe might suit, all this sort of thing. Just tailor it a bit. Treat it exactly like a job application letter. And yeah, just show how you'll be a good fit. Demonstrate. Help them to imagine you playing in their venue or at their event. Item number 3. You're going to want some links to your show reel. So again, the show reel, the most important video you have in your arsenal. This needs to be bang on. It needs to be good. Again, see episode 4 again. And if you want 1 or 2 additional videos, again, literally just 1 or 2. I would advise against having more than 3 videos, including your show reel, just because if your show reel's any good, that should do the job on its own. So if you've got additional videos, these should either be, they should just be relevant. They should show something the show reel doesn't, that the show reel couldn't. And basically you need to justify having them there, because if you go overboard on the amount of stuff you include in this, people aren't going to bother looking at all of it. Item number 4 would be your website and your social media links. As relevant, again, as per episode 4, just a way of showing your credibility online. 10 years ago when I was starting out with Ukebox, the number of Facebook likes you had was the metric to see if you were serious or not. So if you hear about a band and you want to do your due diligence on them, you'd immediately go check their Facebook likes. And if it was anything over about 5,000, ideally over 10,000, you'd be like, yeah, respect, you guys know what you're doing. It's less relevant now that Facebook is becoming more and more pointless and people are moving away from it. But either way, if you've got relevant links, include them. And part 5 is your management contact info, or your band leader contact info as applicable. I've known bands in the past, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but this is something that's been done, is if a band can't get managers or doesn't want to work with managers, they set up their own management company / record label, and it looks like a separate entity to the band, and it can look very professional if enough time is put into it. A bit like when a spy has a cover story. If you set up a management company or a record label to release your stuff through, it just looks that little bit more professional than if you're self-doing it under your band's name. For example, Wolfpack have Wolf Records, that sort of thing. And it's clearly the same people doing it, but it's just that extra layer of seriousness with which you take it, which can impress a lot of people. Now, generally, these promo packs are going to be digital, so you could save them in a zip folder, and then you could send them via email, or send them via WeTransfer, or even on, if you get branded USB sticks under the merchandising section of this, get a USB stick with your branding on it, chuck them on that, send that in, post it, give it in person, whatever. But if you're inclined and it fits your branding to provide a physical promo pack, that should have a bit of money spending on it. It's got to be fancy. It's got to feel like a car brochure, glossy as heck, well designed. Yeah, if one of you in the band is a graphic designer and enjoys doing that in their spare time, they would be perfect to put that kind of thing together. But just don't forget to include QR codes that can link to a link tree or can link to individual aspects of what you do, because so much of what we do these days is digital. There's no way around it. There's no way around the fact that you need a website, you need an email, you need social media. Personally though, if it was me, I would stick to targeted, thoughtful emails with the promo pack as an attachment. That way you can amend it on a case-by-case basis, personalise your content for the place you're or the people that you're sending it off to. It just gives you a chance to do your own due diligence before you send it off, target it correctly, and make the person you're approaching, be it the entertainment's manager at a venue or a couple looking to hire you for a wedding or whatever, make them feel like you've put the time in and put the work in to actually know what they're about, which will help them feel that you can actually bring something to what they have going on. Now, when it comes to sending these out, you need to send them in an efficient and non-spammy, just general professional manner. Start by carefully selecting your targets. For originals bands and performers, pick local venues that have a vibe your band will suit. So the time that I rocked up to the Flying Horse in Rochdale, which is notoriously a rock and metal venue with my 5-piece ukulele boy band, or the time my prog rock outfit turned up at the Roughest pub in Oswestry, Shropshire, they were both questionable decisions with hindsight. As it happened, both went down quite well. The one in Oswestry, we knew we did very well because they were cheering as they threw bottles at us as opposed to screaming abuse as they threw bottles at us, which apparently was a good thing. Pick out good local venues with good energy. You know, the kinds of places you'd enjoy visiting on a night out. You know, if you're a goth, you're obviously going to be going to goth venues, you know, whatever suits you and, again, just suit your vibe. The kind of place you go on a night out. Never play anywhere you wouldn't feel comfortable, like going out or going on a date or going out with friends. Yeah, if you're naturally into the rock metal scene and your band are appropriate for that, then definitely a local, you know, pub with motorbikes parked outside is the place for you. Or perhaps if you're more into wine and jazz, then your local jazz bar's a better shout. This kind of stuff might seem obvious, but to some folk, including myself to be honest, the urge to choose quantity over quality of gigs can sometimes prove a little bit strong. And you need to pick your battles and play to your strengths and just try and get out in front of people that are naturally predisposed to what you and your band have to offer. This way you're going to get a higher quality and a higher relevance of people seeing you play. And your conversion rate, i.e. people that go from seeing you to becoming fans, following you on socials, etc., or buying your stuff, that's going to be higher. For covers bands, focus on sending your demo out to quality local agencies and venues running wedding showcases. A good agency, and this is crucial, make sure it's an agency, not a management company pretending to be an agency. A good one of those will get you plenty of gigs once you're on board, provided that your quality is up to scratch and you allow time to move up the pecking order. That because most agents will have preferred acts, you know, people that have been with them longer, people that are friends, that sort of thing. There is a pecking order and you do need to work your way up it. And that's fine because there will be a time you will benefit from having worked your way to the top. We all got to start somewhere. We all have to prove ourselves. Another tip I'd say is please don't just spam in local Facebook groups. It just looks desperate and amateurish. If you've got to do it, be tasteful and be personal and be relevant to the group that you're posting in. For heaven's sake, don't talk about your band in the third person, stuff like that. And just focus on the quality rather than the quantity of posts you send out. So if there's a Facebook group for jazz covers bands in the northwest of England, for example, just if you're going to post in there, make sure you have something relevant and high quality to say. When writing your covering emails to go with your promo pack, make sure you make them personal. When writing to a venue, mention if you're a regular there, or make a point of finding out who books acts so that you can address them directly. If it sounds a bit like applying for a job, and I've mentioned this already today, but it is because you are literally applying for a job. Be friendly, but be professional, just like you would if you're applying for work, which, again, you are. You are applying for work. Which brings us to the main point here. More than anything, and I know I keep ramming this home, but the key to all this is taking your work seriously, but at the same time not taking yourself too seriously. You know, you've got to be prepared for rejections and people haggling and offering lowball offers, and if you're rejected, just move on. You know, they might well end up approaching you later down the line, and if you weren't a whiny little bitch about getting rejected, then they're more likely to think well enough of you to approach you again and go, well, look, you know, we weren't able to afford you a year ago, but now we are you interested? You know, I've had exactly that happen before, where we were rejected and they remembered we'd taken the rejection professionally, and they were like, well, we've got the time and the budget now, how's about it? So it's worth doing, which just comes back to just treat it like a business transaction. You're ultimately working in sales at this point. You know, you're selling your band's shows, i.e. the product from episode 1. Don't accept lowball offers and just know and respect your worth. Part 2, merchandising. Item number 1 here has to be physical copies of your recordings. Traditionally, this is the ultimate form of merch. Bandcamp can be a great way of selling digital copies, but sales will be thin as most folks are already paying for Spotify. True fans will be more keen on something real, something physical. The holy grail of this for bands is an LP release, get it out on vinyl. But the numbers for a vinyl run are pretty terrifying. I mean, you've got to spend a fortune on a very big run in order to buy enough copies that you can afford to sell them at an affordable, reasonable price that you'll still make money on. Which is why there's no point doing a big run, as you'll probably lose money if you don't sell all of them. So you've got to be sure that you're going to sell all the copies that you order. So it's very much the preserve of bands that have already made it and can guarantee they're going to shift some serious units. Unless you do like a Wolfpack or Wolf Records, and issue vinyl on a pre-sale basis. Of course means you can't sell them at shows, as you're unlikely to have any copies in stock unless you buy them yourself. But you can be sure that you won't spend any money on pressing copies that won't be sold, because they'll have already sold before you actually send it to the press. In terms of value for money, cardboard sleeved CDs, Digipack, I think it's called, they offer the absolute best value for money as far as physical releases are concerned. It can be very affordable to do a medium-sized run, and the markup on them is really excellent. Also, like LP sleeves, they can be personalised at the merch table after shows. And that's a fantastic way to engage with your fans and make the whole thing more memorable. Ultimately, you want to sell people an experience, an emotion. You're not selling them the recorded music, you're selling them the time they met the band that are on the record. When I was touring on the cruise ships as a guest entertainer with Ukebox, we used to finish our show and then run backstage, down some stairs, along a corridor, sprint up some more stairs in a crew area, and we'd emerge at the theatre exits with Sharpies in hand, ready to shake some hands and sign some CDs as the audience left. And it really worked. People would make a point of coming and chatting to us, and they felt more connected to us, and as a result of that, we sold a lot more CDs just by virtue of the fact it was a personal experience that we were selling them. People buy emotions, they buy experiences, they don't like buying physical objects. It's got to have something tied to it. Which applies to t-shirts as well. Clothing is a classic merch item, and for good reason. When you sell a t-shirt, a fan is paying you their hard-earned cash, often as much if not more than the cost of the ticket for your show, for the privilege of walking around and advertising your band for free. They are literally paying you to advertise you. You are being paid for advertising. How cool is that? Obviously, shop around a bit. There's a bit of a balance to be had. Cheap shirts will have a much better markup and they will make you more money and more profit, but they won't be as comfortable or as flattering as a more expensive model. For example, I've been one of those people. I've joined the cult last year. Alright, I did briefly join the cult of getting some Huel ordered, and the first order comes with a little shaker thing that you get and one of those t-shirts that they do. And the t-shirt I wear an awful lot because it's made, partly because it's made from some very nice fabric, but also it looks great on me because it's been cut really well. It's clearly an expensive shirt that they've printed their branding on. So by paying more for their free t-shirt that they sent out with their initial welcome to our cult pack, Huel have ensured that I wear it an awful lot. And, sure enough, even though I stopped buying the stuff months ago, I still get people when I've got the shirt on asking me about it. And yeah, it just shows that it works. It shows that it's starting conversations and people are becoming aware of it, and it's reinforcing the brand recognition that people have around the product, all through a free t-shirt. So whilst they spent more money on it, I would wager it's paid for itself overall in terms of, because it won't just be me. If I notice that something fits me well, then blimey, it must fit well. So really, sometimes money that you might think has been lost on merchandise has actually been spent on advertising. I'll say that again, money lost on merch can have been spent on advertising. Recorded music is another example of this really. It's almost like a loss leader. You're very unlikely to break even on a well-recorded and produced album, but if it catches people's ears on Spotify, the expenditure can be well worth it. The last category of things, which I'm a bit sceptical about, to be honest with you, are the sort of the junk items. So I mentioned earlier USB sticks. They can be useful for sending out promo packs, so why not sell them as well? But frankly, who needs them? But bands have put their logos on all kinds of weird stuff over the years, lighters, condoms, key rings, G-strings, all that sort of thing. I even saw a guy recently in Leeds called John Penney. Amazing, spoken word. Mad as a box of frogs, the show, but perfectly on brand. his merch stands seem to consist of penne pasta from the local Tesco with like a pay what you feel sign next to it. Absolute class, because it was on brand, and if people wanted to support him, they could just buy some 45p's worth of pasta. Genius. Bear in mind that if you're putting your logo on something, it's best to be something people will actually buy and something people will use. You don't want to put your logo on something that's just going to end up in a drawer. If it's something useful, like a lighter, it's more likely to be seen and keep your show and your brand at the forefront of people's minds for a much longer time. So keep it on brand, but something random and fun but useful would be ideal. But a consideration with this, particularly if they're considerably cheaper than your recorded music and your t-shirts, is that you don't want to divert people from spending money on the higher ticket items if they've just come to the show and they want a souvenir and they want to buy the cheapest souvenir that's there. If the cheapest souvenir is there, and I know because I've done this, is a t-shirt, then they will spend 25 quid on a t-shirt. But if they want a souvenir and the cheapest thing there they can get with your logo on it is a lighter for a £5, they're going to do that, and they're not going to buy a t-shirt. So by buying a £5 lighter, they've not bought a 25 quid t-shirt, and you're 20 quid worse off for the experience. So really think about it. Try and funnel people to the higher ticket value items and try not to place any distractions that people will just sort of use in that way. Something to think about. It comes down to you don't want to spend all your time and effort selling low ticket items when you've got high ticket items that will make you more profit. So that's it really for promo packs and merch. Think of promo packs as a job application that can show potential clients your product in its best possible light, but in a clear and concise manner that won't elicit a too long can't be asked to read type response. Merchandise, on the other hand, is about balancing the potential for making some profit with the potential for getting your branding seen by as many people as possible. Both of these things will be really important once you start pushing venues for gigs and pumping fans for cash and free advertising. Spend some time and get them both right, but the absolute most important of the two is the promo pack. Listen again to episode 4, get your materials together and have your promo pack ready to send out to the people it's relevant to send out to. And this is the thing that will make the biggest impact on your progression as a musician and as a band and as a brand and as a business person. All of these things hinge off the quality of your promo pack. This is, of course, a good time to remind you that I offer one-to-one coaching for bands and musicians specifically for the subjects discussed during this podcast. So if after today's episode you feel that you need a hand with your promo pack and getting that all together and just sort of sense checking it with somebody else and getting a second pair of eyes on it, or indeed more coaching in general, then give me a shout. My email address will be in the outro of this episode and I'll be happy to talk to you. So, thanks for listening. Hopefully this has lifted the veil on these two things a little bit. Next week, I'll be looking at momentum and how to change gears when it feels like you've hit a bit of a ceiling in your progress. See you then.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Big Gig Energy podcast. This is the bit where I'm obliged to fish for engagement and stuff, so you can find me on Instagram as Big Gig Energy, that's BIGGIGENERGY, or you can get in touch via email at biggigenergy@gmail.com. I'll link anything relevant in the show notes below, but otherwise, if you've had any thoughts on this episode or would be interested in some one-to-one coaching for yourself and or your band, feel free to get in touch. Otherwise, do all the usual social media stuff, I guess, and let's keep the discussion going. Many thanks as ever to all my supporters and collaborators, and as always, best of luck with your next big gig.